Hey y'all, JaemiO here, and today I'll be talking about how you can reduce high blood pressure with 3 simple tips. Hey y'all, so I've been getting a lot of questions lately about how to reduce high blood pressure or how to manage high blood pressure. This is something I've been getting more and more questions about in general, but I've gotten a ton this week alone, so I wanted to go ahead and address it in a way instead of individually so that everyone can benefit from this. So this video is going to explain what high blood pressure is in depth and what causes it, and then towards the end of the video I'll be giving you 3 simple steps on how you can reduce high blood pressure without any medication. Also, before we start, as I've said in previous videos, I am not a doctor. I do not pretend to play one on YouTube. These are just suggestions of things that I know can and have worked for both people that I know and on things that I've researched. Just a quick background on me: I do have as in biology and chemistry and sustainable food systems. So the body and food and how food affects the body are things that I have actually studied and gotten degrees in, but that does not make me an expert, and I do not want to pretend that I am an expert. So, of course, before you take on any new strategies to better your health, you should always consult with your doctor. But these are things that have been proven to work and that I have seen work firsthand. So, let's get started. So high blood pressure is basically the force of your blood pushing against your blood vessels. So this is your arteries, your veins, capillaries. So basically the blood is pushing hard against those tissues and it causes damage to those tissues. This can lead to heart attack as well as various types of heart disease. So when you have damage to those tissues, you have an increased risk of plaque forming from LDL as I described in a previous video, so that those LDLs or bad cholesterol start to stick to the walls of those arteries, causing more damage and possibly causing stroke. Oftentimes when people find out that they're at risk for high blood pressure or that they know that they have blood pressure, the first thing they say is I gotta reduce my salt intake. And to an extent that's kind of true. We in the US especially tend to have way too much salt in our diets, but you actually need salt in your diet. Salt actually helps to regulate the amount of fluid in your system. So we need salt so that we can stay properly hydrated. However, when we have too much salt, it causes us to retain fluid, which causes the constriction of those tissues that I mentioned earlier, thus making it harder for your blood to flow through your tissues and creating that force that I talked about earlier. So sugar is not something that we often think about as causing us to have high blood pressure, but it actually can do the same. This is kind of an in-depth process, but in a nutshell, basically when you have a lot of simple sugars, so you're thinking about simple carbs like sugars from soda, that causes insulin from your pancreas to spike. High insulin levels basically cause your body to retain sodium, and as I said earlier, that retention of sodium or that increase in sodium in your body causes you to retain more fluid. So in this case, it's mostly affecting your kidneys, and those tissues tend to become swollen. We talk about having carbs and salt and all this, and we look at carbs overall and salt overall as being a bad thing, and that's simply not true. We need those things. However, the problem is when you have an excess of it. So a little bit more background about me. A few years ago, I actually went on a food journey. I was trying to lose weight, and I did. And I was basically trying to become more about food, what it does, and how our food system works. Those are subjects for other foodie rants, but what I did learn during that time, especially with my fiance having high blood pressure and diabetes, were how foods work in our system, as well as with, like I said, those things that I was learning in school. Basically, if you want to lower your blood pressure, you don't necessarily need to be on a blood pressure medication. Now, if your doctor puts you on that, it is possible to get off of it just by doing these steps. Obviously, so the first thing is increase your potassium. Technically, we're supposed to have a 1 to 5 salt to potassium rate in our bodies. Now, I don't want you to go out here trying to figure out how, every time you have a milligram of sodium that you need to have 5 milligrams of potassium. That's too much thought, and that's not something that people are naturally going to do. But what you can do is, instead of opting for, say, a salty snack or a sugary snack, is to eat something like bananas every day, have tomatoes, have a baked potato, have sweet potatoes, even pork. We don't think about pork as being something good for us to eat, but pork actually is high in potassium. So finding foods that you like that are high in potassium can help you to reduce sodium without even having to worry as much about how much sodium am I taking in. What you'll be doing at the same time is, by eating those foods instead of these salty foods, you're naturally eating less sodium as well as putting in more potassium in your system. Thing number 2, hydrate. So you might think this is pretty obvious, but most people don't drink enough during the day. And basically what your liver and your kidneys do is to cleanse your body. It's one of the reasons why I don't really believe in detoxes and all that. Your body naturally detoxes every day as long as you give it the things that it needs to. So by having the potassium, like I already said, you're helping your body to have those tools that it needs to be able to get rid of the amounts of sodium and sugar that it does not need. By hydrating, you help to move neutral fluid through your body and through your liver and kidneys to get those things out that you don't need. There's no magic number of how much you need. You don't need 8 glasses of water. You don't need a third of your body weight. Drink until your urine is clear. When your urine is clear or pale yellow, then you're hydrated. Then your body is detoxing the way it needs to. And thing number 3, probably kind of obvious from things I've said earlier, reduce your sugar intake. So this one might be a little bit harder than you think. We usually think about sugar in things that are sweet, but sugar's in a whole host of things. So just alcohol alone, if you're a person who drinks every day or drinks pretty heavily, consider cutting back on the alcohol. Alcohol is actually a sugar in itself. It's not sweet most of the time, but it is basically just sugar. So by reducing that, you're reducing all those things that I said earlier in this video, and you're able to lower your blood pressure doing that. Other things, if you eat a lot of condiments like sweet and sour sauce, honey mustard, ketchup, even pre-made tomato sauce, those things are high in sugar. So people always talk about processed foods, and one, I have got to make a video about processed foods because all foods are processed. But what you're actually trying to say is that have more additives in them, high levels of sodium, high levels of simple sugars, those things clog up your system. So basically all you need to do to reverse hypertension or high blood pressure is increase your potassium intake, hydrate, and that doesn't necessarily mean just water. You can drink herbal teas for this. I have a lot of people in my family, especially, who live in areas where the water just doesn't taste very good. And some people just don't like water. I hesitate to say putting any of those additives like Crystal Light or JaemiO into your drink in excess, because having all those artificial chemicals in your drinks can be just as counterproductive and cause you to retain fluids as basically drinking a sugary drink. But drinking herbal teas without any sugar added, and a lot of herbal teas already taste sweet, so there's not sugar in them and there's no calories in them, but they have a pleasant taste. You can also infuse your water, let's say cucumber or different types of fruit. Watermelon comes to mind because it's naturally high in potassium. Last but not least, look at how much sugar you're ingesting. So, these things aren't necessarily things that are hard to do. They're good for any budget. Pretty much everyone can afford potatoes. Pretty much everyone can afford sweet potatoes. Drinking water and drinking herbal teas are pretty easy things to do, and fairly cheap to do. So as always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and share it so that you can help others in your community become more food empowered. And as always, a special thank you to my foodies on Patreon for making this video possible. Thanks for watching.